So I was trained as a presenter with BBC Television, and I started off on breakfast time, and then I worked my way up and through London Plus, Newsroom South East, the local news programmes, right up to BBC World. And I was an anchor on BBC World, so total about sort of 12 years. So I've picked up tips along the way about how journalists grab an audience's attention and then keep you engaged and responsive right the way through our TV programme. So what I don't want you doing is picking up your clicker and turning to another channel. I need you to stay with me. So there are ways that we have of doing that, through the words we use and also through various dramatic techniques. People will often say to me, what's the one most important thing that you should consider when you're trying to get a message across or when you're presenting? What are people going to remember? They're going to remember whether or not they believe and trust in you. Let me take that a stage further. I'd like you to consider, with the person sitting next to you, what you feel about these people. What kind of people are they? So what immediately comes to mind when you see their pictures? Lovely. Let me get a couple of words. Give me a word. Leader. Okay, we've had leader here.
She says strong, but also courage.
Strong and having courage, being courageous. Inspirational. Okay, some wonderful words there. Fantastic. Okay, can you quote me anything they've ever said, either of them? Oh, really? Is that what you said? You can't remember?
The thing that he said, the message that he communicated was there, but always remember his warmth and the fatherly-like approach that he made.
That's interesting. So a fatherly-like approach, very engaging, inspirational, trustworthy, all these kinds of words. And I think with Aung San Suu Kyi, I get a sense of dignity and serenity as well. Yeah, do you? I have to see a few nods, which is great. Guess what comes next? I'd like you to consider 3 words that capture how you would like to be described. So say I've just met you. What am I going to say? I'm going to say, oh, that guy, I really felt he was... What? What do you want me to say? So how do you want to be perceived in a professional context? And yes, this can be aspirational. And I want 3 words, please, because the first 2 are easy. It's the third one that's hard. So have a think to yourself. What are your 3 words? Who's prepared to share one with me? Yeah?
Competent, inspirational, trustworthy.
Wow. Competent, inspirational, trustworthy. Well, I was trying to guess what you might come up with. And I thought it might be something along these lines, and I've divided it into 2 columns. We've got the authority with which to speak on the one hand, particularly in a professional context. We have to know you know what you're talking about. And then, interestingly, and the sales guys in the room will so know this, we have to believe and trust in you. There has to be a personal engagement. You know, there's lots of competition out there. Why should I buy from you rather than the competition? And that's where all this stuff on the right-hand side comes in. And that's the personal engagement. Now, the next thing is this. In terms of your first impressions only, okay, first few seconds, some research was done by a guy called Albert Morabian in the States, which you might be familiar with. Now, much to his horror, this has been touted around globally as being true for all communication at all times. And that is not what his research was saying. What Albert Morabian determined is that in the first instance, so first few seconds, we are deciding whether or not somebody looks as if they know what they're talking about. Then, once they start talking, do they sound it? And provided we've ticked both those boxes, then, and only then, do we listen to the words. And that's why you found it so difficult to remember what Nelson Mandela has actually said. But you have a really strong impression of the person. And that was really the point that I was trying to make. So therefore, guys, see that big red piece? We have got to nail that in the first few seconds. So remember the words that you were talking about, how you want to come across in terms of your authority and your personal engagement? Well, let's have a little think about how we can reflect that just in your image. Today, I wanted to come across with both authority, that I have been doing this for decades, but also with a bit of warmth. So what am I wearing that captures personal warmth? Just in what I'm wearing. Well, actually, it's just a splash of colour. Yeah, it's just a splash of colour, exactly. What about in terms of authority? What have I tried to do for authority?
The red jacket, I would say.
Well, the jacket is definitely one thing. So let's take the jacket off. Don't worry, guys, there is a limit beyond which this doesn't go. So what I want to do is just change how I come across. So if I show you what happens when I just change the outline. So far the outline has been very structured. And when I remove the structure and go a bit sort of floppier, I just want to show you the difference. Oh, and there's something else as well. Ladies who wear makeup in business earn 25% more than those who don't. So if I just remove the lipstick, I've changed. That was such a bad idea. So I just want to demonstrate how I have changed in front of your eyes. And it's quite alarming, really, that something so small as this should matter quite as much. What is the feeling you want to get across? Because if you get that right, your body language, your tone of voice will automatically reflect it. And that is what people will remember over and above the words. So how do we present when we're standing? Now, I want you to imagine 200,000 years ago, you're picking berries, because I'm afraid sexism was such 200,000 years ago that you weren't out hunting, you were picking berries. And suddenly you come into a clearing and there's a whole crowd of people standing there or sitting, and they're staring at you silently. And some of them have something sharp in their hands. How much in danger are you right now? Yeah, big heap danger. Those spears are coming at you, right? So therefore, what happens is we instinctively feel vulnerable in that situation. On the other hand, if we stand like this, and we now embrace people. So if you give me a nice gesture, say to over here and over here, so lovely gesture, yeah, lovely. Do you mind if I just play a little bit? So we just make it a bit more natural. Draw it up to your full height, lovely. No, I meant your body up. And rise. This is not an evangelical church, right? Just relax for me, relax for me. Now what I'm trying to do is get these elbows away from the body, lovely. Dame Helen Mirren, you know Dame Helen Mirren, great British actress, she bases all her characters on one part of the body, and it's the elbows. But she said people who are very confident have very natural, open elbows. So what I'm looking at, just gesture to this lady here for me. Just gesture over to her for me. Yeah, I mean actually let that arm go. Yeah, and just and actually gesture as if you're talking to her. Yeah. And now can you gesture over to Hannah for me? Yeah, not quite as much as that. Yeah, just a little gesture, Yeah. We're going to ask him a question. You're going to ask him to stand up in a moment. Let's see what that looks like. So gesture over towards him for me. No, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, I got excited. Because that was you asking him to stand up, you were asking him to do something. Yeah. So it wasn't just an empty gesture, it had meaning behind it. So the body language was beautiful. And what happens now is we instinctively feel very comfortable because you look like our leader. You're leading us over the hill away from this marauding band that are going to pillage our village. And therefore we feel comfortable with you. That was a beautiful job. Thank you very much. Now, guys, this is really interesting. There is a unique problem that Brits have, and that is that we haven't had this fear drummed out of us. Over hundreds of thousands of years, we still have a terror of standing up in front of a silent audience because it hasn't been worked through. For Americans, it's a different story. And do you know why? Anybody know why? Well, you're not far off. It goes back to school, show and tell. From the age of 3, they've been doing show and tell. So they have stood up in front of their classmates and brought in something from home, and they've done a show and tell. British schools are only just starting to do it now. So if your children are doing that at school, fantastic. They're not going to have the same fear that Brits have. So if anybody does business in the States, that is why there is such a difference between the Brits and the Americans. We've been a bit slow to catch up, but we are catching up. So I hope you found all that interesting. I think the psychology of all this is absolutely fascinating. So now I want to take us on a step. That little green triangle, don't know about you, but that's not good enough, is it? We really want to make these words count. I'm going to send you out on a laugh, okay? If there's one thing I could get across to you, it would be around the importance of body language. And I just want to prove how critical it is to you. Can you put your finger and thumb like that together for me? And then can you take that beautifully shaped O and can you place it on your chin? Can everyone do that for me, please? Okay, so how many people have I got in the room? I've got about 30 people in the room. I can't see a single person who's doing what I asked you to do. What did I ask you to do? I asked you to place that beautiful O on your chin. So why are you doing this? Because I'm doing it. And what we've learned as adults is that we never lie with our bodies. We lie with our words, but we don't lie with our bodies. So whatever you really feel, you really believe, you must show it in your body language, because that's what we're going to believe, not what you say.